everybody, and thank you for joining us on episode 5 of Own the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jodi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of AutoTrader.
I'm AutoTrader's road test editor, Dan Alika, and I want to start this episode with an apology to Jodi. Rare.
This never happens. Good thing this is being captured.
I know. I'm going to make it public. So last episode, Jodi and I shot, and we had her dad in the studio with us so that we could, shoot his part of this episode. So then afterwards, Jodi's like, hey, let's make sure to wear the same clothes so that everything just kind of is seamless for the people, watching the webcast version, which is available on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, great idea. And then this morning, I woke up and chose violence by dressing completely different, and the first thing she said to me this morning wasn't like, good morning, good to see you. It was, you're not wearing the same clothes, and I'm sorry that I did that to you.
Good. Luckily, it doesn't matter because most people are listening instead of watching us,
I know,
so it's okay.
But I just wanted to,
It's okay. I forgive you, friend.
Thank you.
You're out, though. Anything
I'm done.
other than that?
You're Jodi's now looking for a new co-host for On the Road with AutoTrader.
But anyway,
let's talk dads.
So this is
demystifying dads. No.
Where's our sound? We got a new
Joseph,
sound.
hit him with the sound effect. Demystifying.
So Father's Day is coming up.
Yes,
and so this is our Father's Day episode. I don't know about you. My dad and my mom too had a huge influence on like why I love cars so much growing up.
Mine didn't. No.
Where did it come from?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, but
it
wasn't
woke up
from
one
my
day
parents.
liking
They're
cars?
not. Yeah, they're not car people. Like my dad. My dad. Likes we'll go to like the auto show and we've done stuff like that, and he likes cars like an average amount. But he's not like, he's not like an enthusiast per se.
Yeah, so both of my parents, huge enthusiasts.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, my mom and my dad. And growing up, my dad either like owned a dealership or worked at a dealership my whole life. And so there was always like cool stuff coming in and out of our garage. And like my mom was a big gearhead too.
That's cool.
So that really influenced like how I got into cars and everything like that. And they're just the coolest.
Yeah, and I think also part of this is like this isn't like reinforcing stereotypes here. It's not like, oh, car stuff and dads. It's just like, we thought it was a cool opportunity. It's not like neglecting Mom's or Mother's Day. Like, frankly, I was stuck in Vegas with my COVID situation over the lead up to Mother's Day. But, it was just like we thought it would be a cool idea to kind of share some stories. And, with your dad's background and, my dad and I have done some cool road trips over the years, and that kind of got us thinking, and we wanted to share other people's stories. So I think that's going to be fun to get to those a little later, to have, our interviews with our dads, which they're very they're contrasting humans in more ways than one.
Our parents?
Yeah, because it's like your dad was like a kind of prototypical car guy. My dad isn't. Your dad is like a little lie, and my dad is not. So they're very different.
Your dad is a big Alika.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's even bigger than you.
For sure.
Yeah. We're going to have to make a lot of extra space in our studio.
Yeah, that's why we did the interviews on separate days, because we actually needed to widen the studio a bit.
We had to break down a whole wall to fit in your dad.
It's been a whole production.
But I'm going to start off this dad episode by telling you a couple of my favorite dad memories.
Okay.
So growing up, and this would have been in like the early 90s, we had a family minivan. And I know I said my dad and mom had a lot of cool cars.
Hey. Don't disparage the minivan.
But once they had kids, obviously things had to change a little bit. So growing up, we had a minivan, and we would drive it to Florida or like Virginia Beach and stuff like that. And one of the coolest things that my dad did was he kitted out our minivan with a VCR player and a little TV.
Oh, that's cool.
And we would watch VHS tapes and on our earphones and just be silent for like 6 hours straight.
He did that for them more than for you.
Oh, 100%. Because at that age, me and my younger sister would fight over literally everything. Like I once yelled at her for breathing my air.
Wow.
And so
Harsh.
by
Guys, now you know what I deal with in this studio. This isn't COVID protocol that we have this distance between us. It's because she told me I was breathing her air,
I'm very
and I needed to
protective.
sit a little further away. So we have these little markers on the floor here, so that
Yeah.
we can have the chairs far enough away that I'm not breathing Jodi's air.
But how cool is that to have, like,
Yeah,
this
that's-
is before in-car entertainment was a
Yeah.
thing. And so I just think it was the coolest thing ever that my dad did this to this minivan, and
That's
we were
sweet.
just quiet the whole road trip.
Yeah.
You know, watching like our Little Mermaid and Lion King and
I
stuff.
like that a lot.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of road trips. My dad grew up in Montreal, so we would go visit family in Montreal quite often, and we would just like tour around upstate New York. You know, being based in Southern Ontario, like there's so many possibilities, so many places to go, and it was always important. I was lucky. My brother and I were very lucky that my parents prioritized, giving us those experiences when we were kids. So we would go on vacation kind of at least once a year was always the plan. But then on top of that, we would take these little, whether it was a weekend or a week here and there, we would go camping a lot, and it was cool to just kind of tour around and see lots of places. I was actually, this week I was looking, I don't know why. It had nothing to do with the podcast or like nostalgia. I was just like, it'd be cool to get back to Cooperstown, New York, to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Cool.
And we did that when I was a kid. And my brother hated it because he's not a baseball guy. He's like that classic kid. Like when we were growing up, my parents were big on us being active, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get outside. And it wasn't hard. I was just that kind of kid. But with my brother, he would rather like read a book or whatever. So my parents made him play baseball. And it was like I'm sure still... It's funny now that he has kids, and I want to ask him, hopefully he's listening, like, Chris, do you do that with your kids? Are they like, Dad, I don't want to, do dance or play soccer? And he's like, tough, you're doing it, because that's what parents do.
Yeah.
But when we were kids, man, he was so resentful. And same with that trip to Cooperstown.
I mean, I'm pretty sure now as an adult, he can look back and be like, oh, well, I'm really grateful my parents did that for me.
But he would never say that to them, I don't think.
Of course, yeah.
It's one of those things that you just kind of like, you morph into like that same, because it's not about becoming your parents, it's just becoming a parent.
Yeah.
I think it's not, a lot of people talk about that where it's one of those like, oh, you're becoming your mom or you're becoming your dad. And it's like, no, you're just becoming a mom or a dad.
That's
or
funny.
a step parent or whatever.
Yeah.
And you become like, not an authoritarian. It's just like you need to enforce rules. There are rules that we
Yeah.
all need to live by.
And you do that in the only way you know how, which is the way you were parented, right?
True.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I realize all the time that I've turned into my mom and dad. I'm not even a parent, but like there's certain things that they do that I definitely do. Like my mom, you always laugh at me, but like I never order a drink with my lunch.
Oh man, I'm always. We'll go out for lunch or whatever, and Jodi will just be like, order her food, and then like, and to drink, and Jodi's like, no drink, and I'm like, why don't you get a drink? She said, that's the way I was raised.
My mom never let us get drinks when we went out to eat. It was just not something we did.
Because she was buying Porsche 911s. She's like, Jodi, come on.
We have to budget smartly,
Hey, you can those cars, even back in the day when they were like more affordable than they are now, they're not cheap.
No, and we'll get into that a little bit later. My dad's going to come on and tell us about their old 911s and stuff like that. But yeah, it's funny. Like, my mom always washes Ziploc bags, and now I find myself doing that. I think it's
Wow.
hilarious.
I mean, it is fun. It's hilarious. Yeah.
I know. She was always very, like, thrifty like that, which
Hey,
I think
that's-
kind of rubbed off on me.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, I'm the opposite of that. Like
You're just making it rain all the time.
Not really, but no kids and whatever, like comfortable life, and I just I enjoy myself. My friends think it's hilarious because I've reached that point where I remember like, getting whatever, like every guy my age, it's like craft beer is a thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it was, $3.50, $4 a can. And you're like, that's fair. And then it's like $4.50 into the $5. You're like, wow. And now it's like, oh yeah, like, it was $7 for this can of beer. And my friends who are dads are like, man, I don't know how you spend that kind of money. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, because they've got kids to save for, right? Like,
Yep.
you and I are like, what do they call them? Elder millennials?
No. They call us dinks.
Dinks.
Yeah. Dual income, no kids. Well, I guess you kind of, like Chris has kids.
Yeah,
But
so my boyfriend has kids, but they don't live with us.
Yeah,
so I don't
exactly.
consider myself like a parent.
yeah.
But
But I'm a classic dink. Dual income, no kids.
right.
And we
But you have 2 cats,
we
which
live
you
it up.
spoil.
Oh yeah, but we live it up a little bit, you know.
Good, as you should. You work hard, you deserve it.
Thank you. Wow, guys, that's my boss admitting that I work hard. That's big.
He does work hard. As annoying as he is,
Wow.
I can't
We're
say that he
we're
doesn't
going
work
all
hard.
in. We're going all.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna play this back next year for my performance review. Be like, well, you know, I think I work hard, and then when you kind of go, I'll be like, boom, Joseph, roll back the tape.
You know what? I wish I did that with my dad. Because, like, to be honest, to get a I'm proud of you from, like, a Chinese dad, it, like, never happens. It happened maybe once. I screen grabbed it just so I have proof. And it's not to say that he's not proud of me. It's just not something we really talk about, you know?
I think my parents, it's the opposite. They're like, they've always been very supportive, and you know, and we were like that kind of like that I love you family, right? Whereas like you know, you leave, you say I love you,
Oh, we
you
never
hang
say
up the
that.
phone, and you know, when I was growing up, if I was like sleeping over at a friend's house, and of course, like when you're growing up, it's a little bit embarrassing. You
Yeah,
know?
you have to do it quietly. Love you.
Yeah, I love you too. You know, but like it's, you know, that's just the way that we were growing up, and you know, we still are. We're like close, just obviously it's different now. I don't like talk to them every day. I don't call them to tell them how many Ziploc bags I've washed out. Mom, tell me you're proud of me.
I mean, like, they'll say it, but it doesn't happen very often. But
Yeah.
we express it in different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's and I think that's kind of the cool thing about doing this podcast about Father's Day and just those differences, because even that idea, this isn't about, you know, being politically correct or whatever, but it's like even the idea Father's Day, like it's not about, you know, biological fathers. There are father figures for people. Everyone's circumstances are different, and to me it's about, you know, what it represents, right? Somebody
Yeah.
who gave you some guidance, you
some
know,
mentorship,
Yeah.
some life advice.
and it doesn't, you know, it's not about like, oh, that's my dad because it's my biological father. Stepdads, you know, uncles,
Yep.
that have stepped into that role, like even family friends, right? There are people in, you know, different circumstances, and so this is just a kind of a celebration and a thank you to all the dads in all the different walks of lives, and all the ways that you know these men have kind of stepped up for kids.
Well said, Dan.
Thank you.
And with that, let's get into some of the dad stories. So
Oh yeah.
instead of Ask an Expert this week, we asked people to submit fun stories or memories about their dads.
Yes.
And so we're going to read out a couple of them for you, because some of them are really great. I might cry, like I'm a big crier, and some of these are really
Wow.
like...
You're not a big anything, Jodi. I need to remind you of that. You're a little crier, but a crier nonetheless.
Thank you.
Let's get into it.
I take back what I said earlier.
Wow, I was just saying. It's an observation.
Okay, we're going to start off with one story from Amy from Toronto.
Okay.
She sent this to us over Twitter. So, once in our old Impala, my dad left my infant sister in the front seat of the car while he was cleaning the exterior. And as he was cleaning the boot, my sister put the car in reverse and ran him over.
I like Amy's line. It's funny because he was okay.
He limped for a few weeks.
Classic.
And so
I like that.
That's an amazing story. And knowing Amy, we used to work with Amy.
Oh, is this Amy of Pet Guide fame?
It is.
Wow.
It certainly is. Yeah.
What a
And
doll.
so
I love
she's
Amy.
hilarious, and the fact that she shared this story
That's awesome.
is just amazing.
Yeah.
With the emphasis on that he was okay. Nothing happened to him, but it's just a reminder that, like, you know, silly things like that can happen.
The other thing I want to point out, I didn't read these ahead of time because I wanted to be like as surprised as people listening. So
Okay, you can do the next one.
Okay, so this comes from James Bell, who's Canadian. He works for Kia in California.
Have you ever met him?
I believe so. Yeah, many years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have met him previously when we used to travel a lot down there.
Yeah. So, this is James's story. The story goes, my dad went out in February of 1966 to buy, quote, the cheapest model of a VW bus to replace my mom's 1964 and a half Ford Mustang. Too cool. Like, I mean, you know, that's not necessarily, it's very different, but not a step down, in my opinion. Two very cool vehicles. Anyways, Dad talked Mom into the sway so they could go on road trips and maybe even a little camping. He came home with the top of the line 9-passenger deluxe priced at a whopping $3,061.35. Mom not happy. That's we've all been there, James. But that didn't stop me from coming home from the hospital in the bus once I was born, and I enjoyed many amazing road trips as a young family. And yes, I checked. I was not conceived in the bus, much to my chagrin. See, this is why I like
I
reading
wouldn't want to
these
know, to be honest.
in the moment. Jump to my 16th birthday, and I get the keys to the bus, which had since been painted a horrible shade of 1970s brown. But to me, it was the ultimate escape pod, and it carried me and my buddies to and from many rounds of hijinks, including several trips south of the border to Mexico at age 16 and 17. I recently named the bus Rosarito in honor of those illogically successful journeys to that crazy Baja town. Jump now to 2002, when the bus has been sitting on my dad's driveway for a few years, slowly losing the horrible brown paint in the sun and occasional rain. The bus is not looking good, but it's all there. I like that. And sorry, I said 2002. I meant 2022. Fast forward 20 years. It's cool. I like that. I like this idea that, you know, the memories of a car, you know, or a van, like, it's still there.
Yeah.
And it's like every time you look at it, it's just, you know.
There's more to the story, though.
Is there? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you gotta scroll down.
Oh, so I was right. So it was 2002.
Yeah.
One day my dad was watering the lawn when a guy walking his dog stopped by and asked what the plans were for the bus given the growing market for these machines. Turns out the guy is a mega enthusiast with mad skills, so a deal was done and the guy took the bus to his nearby house for a slow restoration project. 17 years later, it was done. Myriad of reasons for the slow process, but point is, she is back home. What? Crazy. Sadly, Dad since passed away, so he never got to see the bus return to showroom fresh glory. But Mom confirms your dad would be so proud. And every time I take Rosarito on a run down the Pacific Coast Highway, I look up through the open sunroof to thank Dad for his day in 1966 and trusting me to carry on his legacy.
Isn't that a beautiful
James,
story?
I love that, man. That's so cool.
What a gorgeous story. And I love that van carries like so many memories and like so much weight.
Yeah.
And it really proved that like all those years waiting for it to be restored, totally worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's, you know, it's nice. And again, I mean, I guess, well, I jumped the gun a bit, but the same thing applies, right? Where it's like that vehicle is still there. You can't replace those memories. And it's not about, you know, the paint or the paint fade over all those years or whatever. It's like just, you know, I had this not the same and not as cool of a vehicle, but when I was a kid, you know, we had a 94 Chevy Lumina minivan. And I remember when I was a teenager, I was probably about 20, and my parents were like, hey, you know, we're getting rid of it. Like, it's yours if you want it. And I thought, even back then, I thought long and hard, but, you know, the sway of like, well, vans aren't that cool pushed me away from it. But I really thought long and hard about it, and a big reason why was like all the trips we took. And it was sitting in the driveway, and it was aluminum. My dad took great care of it, but it also had those polymer panels, so like there was no rust or anything. But I just looked at it and was like, oh, it's, you know, thinking back to all those road trips and all the times that we went, you know, bombing around. And yeah, it's just nice to that a vehicle can you know, make those memories or be part of those memories.
Yeah, and that's what I always say, that like I love sharing these stories because they're really more about the people than they are about the cars themselves.
Yeah, totally.
And I just love that. That's part of why I like car culture so much, is because of all of the stories that it kind of like opens up.
Yes.
The vehicles are vehicles to the stories.
Whoa.
And not just,
double
you know, getting
entendre.
around.
I like that. I like that.
So we have another submission from Jeff. He recently joined the Trader team. So
Okay,
he
welcome,
works with
welcome,
us.
Jeff.
Welcome, Jeff. And this is his story. As creatures of habit, for my entire childhood, my family would spend 2 weeks in Florida every summer. We had a special car designated for that trip exclusively, a 1978 Ford Thunderbird, or as I affectionately called it, the Thunderboat. It served no other purpose than to drive to and from Florida that one annual trip.
That's crazy.
Isn't that cool? I love that idea.
Man, I don't know how old. What year was it?
1978.
Okay, yeah. Different economy.
Yeah, I know. Different times. Every Father's Day, I was given the privilege of helping take that car out of storage. Every year, my responsibilities grew. It started out with washing the tires until the white walls were shiny and bright, to helping mount them, to doing an oil change, and then reconnecting the battery. When I turned 16, with my shiny new license in hand, I was promoted to relief driver, the child that took over driving duties when Dad got tired. That pretty much entailed me driving for an hour while he pretended to sleep. As I look back on what seemed like tedious work as a kid, I realize now that it was a good foundation of building blocks to maintaining my cars as an adult. For that, I thank my dad for making me somewhat competent when it comes to basic car maintenance.
That's cool.
Isn't that neat?
I like that. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, that again is one of those things, right, where it's not about, everybody's memories are different. Again, my dad's not necessarily a car guy, but he kind of instilled those same, values and principles in me, that it's like, treat the car well, it's going to treat you well in return.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's cool. And that's so amazing to have a car specifically to road trip in.
Yeah, I think it makes it even more special.
Yeah.
But I also like that when you're a kid, these tasks, they seem tedious, but then it becomes like an honor, like a special thing that you get to do. And
it's also a big deal, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like you kind of like, I'm sure Jeff was almost like overthinking the responsibility of like, scrubbing these white walls.
Right.
It's like, as a kid, it's a big responsibility. And then you realize, it's not that big of a deal, but it also makes you go, well, you know what? It's important nonetheless.
I feel like when he graduated to actually driving the car down to Florida, that must have been like a huge moment for him.
This is different, but kind of similar, that Jeff mentioned, being tapped as the relief driver. Years ago, I think I was 18. My girlfriend grew up in Cape Breton. And they'd moved to Ontario when she was young. So Becky, her mom Cindy, and I decided that summer we were going to drive out to visit her family, because they go every year, and they invited me, and I was all excited. But I had my highway driving experience at the time was very limited, because I didn't really need to go anywhere on the highway and whatever. So I remember we made it to somewhere in Eastern Ontario, and Becky's mom was tired and was like, I need you to take over. And it was torrential rain.
Were you terrified?
It was white knuckle, like,
oh God.
And of course, because, Becky had stayed up all night, so she was sleeping in the back. And so I had to drive by myself, this as that relief driver, white knuckle, all the way through Montreal too.
Yeah.
And I was terrified. But
responsibility.
It was huge. So, anyways.
Cool story, Dan.
Thanks.
Do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, sure. So this comes from Gabriel?
Gabriel Palucci.
Oh, age 10. Me and my dad and our family love our Audi S5 convertible. Cool car, man. That's really cool. We love the flashy red color. Me and my dad always like to do launch control in the car when it's just the two of us. Whoa, make sure mom's not listening to this. We like to go really fast. We love speed. My dad always likes to put the roof down. I love going on long rides with him in the country. My dad loves cars. He became a mechanical engineer because of cars. Me and my dad always watch car videos on YouTube together. Next, I hope he gets the BMW M6 convertible. I want to wish him a happy Father's Day. That's nice.
Isn't that lovely? Just
like
age
that.
10. So Gabriel Palucci
Yes.
is a huge fan of yours,
Wow.
actually, Dan.
Okay.
He watches your YouTube reviews all the time.
Hey, I like that. Hey, man, I appreciate you watching, and I hope, that along with your dad, we can kind of help you build that love of cars and really, that again, going back to Jodi asking earlier about how I got into cars. It wasn't, my parents didn't own fast cars. It was just something that, I built up the same way, reading magazines, because I'm, I predate the YouTube era. When I was 10, there was no YouTube. Gabriel, you're a lucky guy to have that that
It's
resource
so
there.
accessible,
Oh
yeah.
man, it's awesome. But I like that, and the Audi S5 is a super cool car, and the convertible, it is amazing.
I love that he gets to do launch control with
I'm
it. Like,
telling
how
you,
fun would that be as a 10-year-old? Like,
that
oh my God.
if mom is listening right now, dad's gonna have some questions to answer to, I think.
I think it's all in good fun. I always loved sitting in the car while my dad was driving fast because I always trusted him. Like, he's a
Oh, of
very good
course.
driver.
Yeah.
And it felt really safe. Like, no matter what he was doing, I felt so safe with him. Yeah,
Because
just
he's your dad.
because he's my dad. Yeah, of course. So we have a final story
Yes.
here from Laisha Klein.
Okay.
So my father, Jason, was a corporal with the RCMP. He ran the Sumas Highway Patrol in British Columbia for years in the early 90s. For all the wonderful ride-alongs with him chasing people on the highway, he didn't know much about the vehicles themselves. He just liked to drive them and drive them well. When I turned 16, I bought my first car, an 86 Oldsmobile Forenza.
Wow.
This granny car was never used and in amazing condition. His best advice was to always keep your oil topped up. Too bad he said nothing about changing the oil. In the first 4 years, I never once changed it. I didn't know I had to. No one told this girl anything more than to keep it topped up. Well, my vehicle sounded like a diesel, but it still ran like a dream until its demise 10 years later.
Well, that's pretty good.
In my defense, I'm the oldest of 3 girls, and not one person in my family fixed cars. That was best left to the mechanics who knew what they were doing.
I mean, that's an innocent mistake on both parties,
yeah.
right? Like that's good fatherly advice. Make sure, especially an older car, probably burning a little bit of oil, so it was like make sure to keep that topped up. You think like, oh, everybody knows you got to get an oil change, but
Not everybody knows, though. That's the thing. And they did it for 4 years before changing the oil, it seems. But it was running like a dream.
it was an Oldsmobile.
I feel like cars back then were a lot more forgiving, maybe, for stuff like that.
Mechanically, yeah, they weren't as complex. They were, I hate to go down they don't build them like they used to road, but they were like definitely, I think, a little more robust in different ways, right? Because they were also like look at now. If you look at a 10 or a 15-year-old car now, they look worlds better than a 10 or 15-year-old car did back in like the 90s.
True.
If you were looking at like an early 80s car, you were like, yikes.
It looks the part.
Yeah, like of course, some people did a nice job of maintaining them, but the average, like the term beater car exists for a reason, right?
Yeah,
because
it's
they
true.
looked rough and they were, a little dilapidated. They didn't have like nowadays, with like the anti-corrosion baths that they go through during the assembly process and everything really helps.
Yeah, I think they're just made to last a lot longer now for stuff
Yeah.
like that. But what a cool story.
I
Thank
like
you.
all of those stories.
Thank you, everybody, for those submissions. Those are such great stories.
Yeah.
If you missed out or you want to tell your story, please email us at expert@trader.ca. And we're happy to read them out on later episodes as
course.
well. I just
And
love hearing this stuff.
Hold on. Let's also open it up. It doesn't just have to be dad stories. Like
Mom
obviously we'll
stories
take
too.
mom stories, friend stories, road trip stories, mishaps. Like I don't care what it is. Because we all have those, ridiculous, like how did we get out of that situation? I remember once when I lived in Alberta, me and my friends decided to go camping. And we went to what's called Wilmore Wilderness Park, and it's like this wilderness park.
Okay.
And it was one of those places like there's no park staff there. It's all like on the honor system. You put like an envelope with your money in it. And we took my truck and we were coming back, and I believe it was Labor Day weekend. And so my friend Mike, good guy, who's a dad now, happy Father's Day, Mike. He was like, guys, I just need to be back early enough in the evening because I need to work. We worked at the newspaper and he had to do the layout for the next day's edition. So he's like, please, just make sure. And me and Aaron were like, no problem. So we go to leave and we had a blowout. One of the tires of my truck exploded. And, trucks, you usually have this little tool to like drop the spare from underneath the frame. And it was all corroded, so I couldn't get the spare down. And so we had to like head into Hinton, Alberta. Like we got a tow truck, but it took hours because it was a holiday, and Mike didn't make it back in time to lay out the pay. It was bad. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, share all of these crazy stories
just
with us.
some fun story that, you know, an experience you had or whatever. I think that, again, is what this is all about.
For sure. And with that, I would like to welcome our dads to the show.
Oh, let's do it.
Hi, Dad. Welcome to Own the Road with AutoTrader.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
This is really cool. I'm really excited. I get to get some dirt on Jodi. I'm sure she was like a problem child, you know, like really difficult, right? A bit of a...
I think I was a good kid, but what do you think?
I think she's the best kid ever we
The
have.
best kid ever!
Wow. I hope your sisters hear this too.
They're going to watch this episode and be so upset. But thank you, Dad, for joining us today. The reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because, like, cars, I was surrounded by cool cars growing up, and I think it really, like, influenced why I got into this career, why I like cars so much. And that's all thanks to you and Mom. So maybe we can just start off by sharing a story about one of your most favorite cars that you've ever owned.
Oh, that's too many to mention.
See how cool he is? Like,
I own so many cars in my life. But
okay.
the one I have more memory with is the BMW, I would say.
Is it this one?
Yes, this is a 1976-2002 TII, and this is which is very rare model.
It's an amazing car.
Yeah.
I think this is bigger for BMW than the CSL, in my opinion. This was an amazing car.
This is the starting ground. They become famous.
Yeah.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
And what is it about this car particularly that you love so much?
Oh, it handles like phenomenal. Take around the corner, it's like no corner. I love it.
That's so
And
fun.
it looks so good too. The gold BBS wheels,
Yeah.
the fog light covers. We'll get like a good image up there that everyone at home can see. And if you're listening to this on a podcast provider, we're going to make sure to have it up there on YouTube and whatever. You got to check it out.
So cool.
Because it's a beautiful, beautiful car.
And then so I always tell people that when they ask me that you brought me home from the hospital when I was born in a 911, which kind of like kick-started things off real strong for my car obsession. Can you tell me a bit about this 911?
Yes, that's a 911 SC back then. And again, I love the way the design. And kind of like a man's dream always say, you have to own one in your lifetime.
They are. Yeah, I think like every kid had a poster of a 911 on their wall.
I did growing up.
Can I see it for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's just like the lines, and it's like the timeless design, you know?
Yes.
And you see the new one, that Jodi was just driving a couple weeks ago,
Yes.
which you can go on autotrader.ca/editorial. You can read Jodi's review of the 2020, was it a 2023?
2022.
2022 Porsche 911 GT3 Touring. So it was a lot like this. It didn't have, you know, a big spoiler on the back. It was like really kind of, you know, classy, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, and so the one I was driving had a manual transmission.
Oh,
yeah.
perfect.
And you and Mom used to tell me how hard it was to drive.
Yes, it's a different configuration with the clutch system back then. That's why Mommy always complaining, like
Just too difficult in traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, she
yes.
said that her legs would cramp up.
Oh, I get that totally. Yeah.
Yes, and driving one of these is quite a challenge. That's why I like it so much. You almost need 3 feet to drive.
But it's rewarding, right?
It is.
Yeah, I think when you get it right, it's like really
Yes,
satisfying.
If you really can control that vehicle, that car will perform like fantastic.
Amazing.
Fantastic, yeah.
So what sparked your love of cars?
I think by one of my favorite and I always admire to idol is the Nick. Nick is he unfortunately he was in multi-accident and become a famous racing driver,
Okay.
Formula driver
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. So that's why I fall into love with all the sports cars and stuff like that.
It always, I like that everybody's like a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Like, what drew people in, it's not always the same avenue.
Right.
It's like what got me interested in cars was different than you, different than Jodi.
Yes.
But then you were kind of the spark that ignited her passion. So
Yeah.
it's like cool how it's just everybody has a different story and a different background.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember growing up, like we would always have the coolest cars, and nobody would understand like why I was so into cars. For a girl, like it's kind of weird back then.
I only run in the blood.
It does run in the blood.
Yeah.
But you also told me that when you and Mom first came to Canada, you bought one of the first things you did was you bought a Mustang.
Yes, I do. First, back in 1973, when I landed in Toronto, first thing I do is go and buy myself a Mustang.
Why a Mustang?
Well, because in where I come from, Hong Kong, American car, especially Mustang, is like
Like a status symbol. Like,
right,
yeah.
it's kind of symbol. Yeah.
Cool.
So I tell myself, the first car I'm gonna buy is this.
That's
So
awesome.
I bought one, but I drove it for about a couple of years, and I think I changed to Alpha.
Nice. That Alpha's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's like,
I'll show you a picture of the Alpha, but maybe
Oh my
you can tell
goodness.
us it's this one, right?
Yes, this is my first Alfa Romeo.
And why did you love this one so much?
Oh, again, the horsepower and the handling, and actually the cornering capability is a little better than the BMW 2002. Yeah.
and also we need to point out that he's just such a stud in this photo. Like he looks like, such a cool guy. Not, so natural too.
Yeah,
it's just like,
naturally cool, which explains why I'm so naturally cool.
well, let's not push it here, Jodi. Come on now.
But
Hold on. Did this have the wooden steering wheel?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
just so
Yes,
cool.
yes.
Everything about it is amazing.
Yes. Back then, they don't have the airbag, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are wooden steering wheel.
Yeah.
the stakes were so much higher back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you told me that you used to go on a lot of road trips with Mom
Yes.
and you had a Mustang, like a 67 Mustang or
Yes,
something?
I have the 67 Mustang convertible, and that car was like a bottom falling right out. That's where, that's back in like when I was about 20 years old.
Wow.
And then we go on to Florida, driving that car all the way to Florida.
From
Miami.
Toronto?
Yes, Miami Beach. And sometime, when we stay over in the hotel, next morning it won't start. So I have to use it like a iron bar to hammer the battery terminal. And then it will come start. So I don't know what happened to it, but it works every time.
It's because of how cool you looked. You just kind of intimidated the car into starting, I think.
That's so fun. And then you actually said that your dream car was a vintage Mercedes.
Yes. Why it bring me to my dream car is one time my mommy and I went to watch a movie in Young and Eglinton. I remember the whole picture still in my back of my mind. And I seeing this old gentleman, like a grandfather, going to the movie with the grandkid in that particular car.
Okay.
And the picture looked perfect.
Wow.
I just wanted to be like that gentle old man.
And now you actually have a granddaughter to do it with.
I wish the day will come. My
Yeah.
dream car will appear.
Well, that's something that, again, it's so cool that those memories that you just make, and there's and sometimes you can't explain why you love it. Sometimes you can, and it's like that, you're never going to forget that.
No, never ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I love that car. But all this time, I was not able to come across one.
Because they're so rare these days.
It is. Back then it's so weird too, but now even tougher to get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the collector market has changed so much,
It is.
in the last few
It
years,
is.
especially
It is.
where prices have gone up. There's a little more there are more avenues to buy cars, online and stuff, but it's
Right.
also driving the price up.
Right.
That cars are, really just like not driven. They're collected. They're like baseball
Right.
cards, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, that Mercedes is a quite particular one. Yeah, it's a Mercedes 280 SE convertible two-door coupe, and it's real car.
That's so fun though. So
Yeah.
like obviously my dream car is a 911.
Well, yes, most people dream car is either Ferrari or Macan or
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm more of like, you know, a simple, like, I have dream cars, of course, but like my stuff is like, you know, I like vans, wagons, you
Yeah?
know, just like,
You like the wagon too?
oh,
yeah,
I
like
have
wagon.
I have a Golf wagon right
Oh,
now as my current
okay.
car.
Also a diesel manual, just like me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's just like my last car too. But
Yeah,
mine is the
exactly.
automatic,
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And again, it's like that idea that everybody can have these different passions and these different, you know, things that they love about cars, where it's like sports cars or trucks or, you know, for me, vans
Right.
and wagons, they're just so
Yeah,
cool. And
yeah.
I have a Miata right now, which is
Yeah.
kind of like an attainable dream car.
Yeah.
So
yes.
yeah, it's cool like how it can be such a diverse,
Right.
you know, cross section of,
Yeah.
you know, just people.
It's a fun car. Yes.
Yeah, and even mom, because she always takes a lot of great pride that she was able to drive the same cars that you drive, but also like keep up with all those other drivers, you know?
Yes. Especially when she driving that white Alfetta GT. Oh, she's
She was a
is
little
that,
speedy.
Is that this?
Oh, yeah.
Is that this one?
yes. That's a Alfetta GT. Yeah.
Cool. And what are you doing in this picture?
Oh, I was doing the Alfa Romeo Cup time trial in Charleville.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, and I become number 2
What? That's impressive.
Wow, that's awesome.
with the trophy at home. I think you have seen it when you're
I think I have seen it.
home. Yeah.
Look at how fast he's going though. He's going
Yeah, he's
ham
ripping.
into this corner.
Oh yeah, I like the license plate too.
Yeah. That's a special plate.
Yeah, GTV 660. That's awesome.
That's so fun. And you said the only reason that you got Alfa Romeo is because they were like very finicky. Is that you had a friend mechanic, right?
Yes, fortunately I have one of my best friend he's an Alfa Romeo and a Ferrari mechanic. So he
Oh, without that, you can't. Those cars are
Yeah.
so much trouble.
yes,
Yeah.
they are so delicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, very delicate.
Like raising Jodi.
On that note, well, thank you for coming in today to the show, and thank you for always inspiring me to be a better person and for, you know, inspiring my dreams of owning a 911 one day.
Well, it's reachable. keep work hard, you know, and you become the best. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and yeah, that's all. And she is the best girl
I do. I'm a big Jodi fan. We've been friends for a long time, and it's you know, and I know like how much she adores you guys and how much you guys mean to her. So it's great to finally meet you
Oh,
and to
thank you.
have you on the show. And I guess like an early Happy Father's Day.
Oh,
I'll
thank
say.
you very much, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are.
Well, guys, my dad's here. I'm going to change things up. I'm going to act a little more, you know, prim and proper.
It won't last long.
But
I'm
yeah,
sure.
not really. Anyways, my dad, John's here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. For
Got him
having
out
me.
of the house. Recently retired. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
I think
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
this might be my first time seeing you since you
Actually, yes.
retired. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is crazy. COVID and everything. We don't
That's
you know,
right.
see each other as often, but you
Yeah.
know. So welcome to Own the Road with AutoTrader.
Thank you.
You and Mom just had a little road trip this past weekend, I believe.
We did, yeah. We went down to Erie, Pennsylvania, and then Grove City. Did a bit of shopping, first time since COVID.
Cool.
And that's normally a regular trip. Went with a couple of really good friends and had a blast, had a lot of laughs, because half the adventure is actually getting there.
Oh my God, I love that. You
Yeah.
know, it's like we were talking about that earlier. You know, that all of these memories that you make and stuff, and like vehicles play such an important part of that. Whether it's like the vehicle itself is memorable or just like being in the car, you'll always
Yeah.
remember, you know, the joke or the incident. Remember like when Ian and Joan and the girls came to visit from Scotland and
Yes.
we were driving down the highway. I was like 9 years old, and we were coming back from Wonderland, I think.
Yeah.
And we, you know, hit something. And so of course my mom and Joan like panicked that it was like, what did you hit and whatever. And my dad realized it was a skunk that had run out in the road. But they were like, you need to go back and check on it. And my dad and Ian were like, this is my mom's cousin. We're like, no. They were visiting from Scotland. We're not going to go on the side of the road and get sprayed by a skunk. Yeah. But see, it's a memory that we made in
Canada.
In the Chevy Lumina.
That's right. Yeah, the good old Chevy Lumina.
Yeah. So, we were talking before with Jodi's dad, and he was like a conventional car guy, and you're not, that prototypical, like, let me own something cool. You were like a little more pragmatic, where it was like, let's buy something and drive that for a while.
Yes.
So you and Mom kind of had like a little bit of a first car for a short period of time, and then a second car. So if you want to talk about that.
Sure. Two-door Cutlass that my dad had helped me purchase, and but we quickly realized that, young new family needed something a little more pragmatic, as you put it, Dan. And so we went to a Chevette.
It's a good car.
Yeah, it was
tiny.
It was tiny. That
classic gorilla in a phone booth for those of you watching.
Exactly.
I'm surprised you fit.
Yes, that was I had to fold myself getting in and unfold getting out, but you know what, was good. And then we ended up going to Dodge Caravan.
That thing was awesome.
It was, yeah.
I liked that. And that was like Canadian made.
Yes.
Super cool. Started the whole minivan thing that has, fizzled a little bit, but they were so useful.
They were.
And I was talking earlier that, when you guys said to me when I was 20 or whatever, like, hey, if you want the Lumina, it's yours. And I thought long and hard about it, just because, we'd made so many memories, and it felt like a little bit of that family heirloom kind of thing. But it was also like, you can do so much. You can fit so many friends. You can, but ultimately, like, I made the mistake of being like, minivans aren't cool.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Young Dan was dumb Dan.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, now you wish you had that van.
It was, that van, that Lumina was so great, like those long trips that we used to take. And you guys being able to sit in the very back, fold those middle seats up.
Jodi calls it the back.
That's it.
The back seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would take the second row seats out, sit in the back, and then we would have, if we had too much stuff, you had all that room behind your seats, but then still all the space behind, and going to the drive-in all the time, and with
amazing.
the seats out, like Chris and I would fall asleep in the back, and you and Mom would sit up front and wake us up when we got home because we missed, 2 out of the 3 movies.
Yeah.
And then, so we had the Lumina, which was great. And, but you had that for a long time because you took care of your cars.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But when you were growing up, what did your dad had some interesting cars.
So, my dad had a 79 Ford Thunderbird.
Cool.
Which, hold on, we just went over a story that we got a submission.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it was also a 79 Thunderbird.
I feel like it was a 76 Thunderbird, but same
Jodi.
thing. But that was a dedicated road trip car for that family.
Yes.
So similar story. Yeah.
Yeah, and that for us, growing up, that was a dedicated road trip car as well. And I remember I just got my license. I'd waited a little bit longer, got my license at 17 instead of 16. And I remember my dad handing me the keys and saying, hey, go out, visit your family out in the Eastern Townships in Quebec. So I was absolutely thrilled, right, to drive this thing. But it was a beast. It was a boat. I mean, that nose, you really had to be careful maneuvering, doing your parallel parking and even lane changes, right?
For sure.
Right.
It was, but it was great. It was forest green, matching roof as well, because it was that pleather-like.
The Landau roof. So
Yeah,
it was like
Landau,
a vinyl.
the flip-up headlights,
Cool.
and then it had an 8-track, of course. So I had one tape to listen to because that was the only tape that was around, I think, back then, and it was like Breakfast in America, right? So listen to that thing 300 times there.
I mean, it's a great record, though.
It was, it is still a great record. So
Do you still remember your road trip when you hear those songs?
absolutely, now you have so many options, right, for listening Sirius and things like that, and so anytime I've got that listed as one of my favorites, right, like the band itself.
Oh, so you get the prompts on the
So I
satellite
get the prompts.
radio,
So when one of those songs comes on, absolutely,
And then he
it
just
takes
goes
me right back.
pedal to the metal.
That's all. Yeah.
Guns it.
Except, I mean, that with that vehicle, you pedal to the metal and you can watch that gas gauge go down, right?
My
Because it was a
gosh.
V8.
Yeah.
It was huge. It was like a 350 or 351.
They
I
were
think.
huge. Yeah, they were. It was a big motor.
Yeah, it was.
Cool.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool to me that like everybody, it's a little bit different, and it's
Yeah.
like, but you kind of instilled in me that idea that like, you take care of your cars and they'll last, like regular
Yeah.
maintenance, keep them clean.
That's right.
And it's cool because it's just a different side of vehicle ownership. Like Jodi's dad went over all these different, like a BMW 2002 and a Porsche 911 and stuff, and it's
Nice.
like that's awesome, But
Yeah.
for us, it was like, these practical vehicles, but then you had them forever, and you as you always say, it's like doesn't owe you anything at the end. Like by the time you get rid of
Yeah.
it, it's like,
That's right.
It's paid its
Absolutely.
dues.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, it was something my dad always instilled in me. Like if you take care of something, it'll take care of you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's and I think that's nowadays, especially, I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't think about, where it's like, oh, I can sign this 7-year finance term on this vehicle, and but
Yeah.
then it's like, by the time you're 4 or 5 years into it, you haven't been taking care of it. It's running a little rough, and then you're
Yes.
rolling that negative equity into the next vehicle. So it's like you want to make sure to kind of maximize or be smart.
Absolutely.
And say to yourself, if you know that you're that type of person that you're going to get bored with a vehicle after a few years, maybe leasing is a better option
Yes.
for you.
Yeah.
We'll obviously go over this on another episode when we do car buying tips. But it's I think it's all part of that, right? It's like understanding, what you can do and the little things that can make the vehicle last longer.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
that's what dads are for.
It's so true.
Yeah, I remember my dad, truthfully, I always preferred when I was learning to drive when mom would take me out, and I only say that because my dad was good at the lessons, but I felt more like,
Yeah.
and it was sometimes
Sure.
it was my fault. Remember we were at that Dairy Queen and I was backing out and I like stomped the gas, like my
Yes.
foot just kind of, and we like gunned it in reverse.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
a
it can
close
be.
call.
But you know what? That's part and parcel, right, of learning. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not, but you and I, we've had some great experiences over the
Yes.
years with cars. We did, so Mazda Canada does the Adventure Rally, and it's like this fundraiser, and it's a really cool way that you pick a charity, and it's a bunch of legs. You go somewhere that you don't know ahead of time, and you drive, and it's kind of like a scavenger hunt mixed
Yeah.
with a rally. Like a timed rally. So we did that
Yes.
back in 2017, I think it was.
Yes, I believe it was
Did you
2017.
do it in Miatas?
Yeah, one.
Yeah.
Yeah. A
So that was
Miata.
2 gorillas in a phone.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah.
There are some
that
funny
was-
photos. Maybe we'll do what we're going to do with your dad's cars, and we'll get that because the two of us in there, like our heads sticking out over
Barely
the sunroof.
fit.
Yeah.
Oh, and there were like bonus points because it was like March, I think. And so
Yes,
it was like
March or April. It was like just starting to get spring-like.
but it
like,
was still like
as far as
cold
road
in the
conditions.
mornings, and it was bonus points if you had the top down, and we were
Yeah.
like, so we
gotta
had
do
well,
it.
we had no choice, really.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
also remember on that trip, I said, I'm like, pack light,
Yes.
because we have one car, and I have a feeling it's going to be the MX-5, and he was like, they're not going to put us in the MX-5, and so he showed up with this huge,
It was
like,
a duffel bag.
like this mat, and I'm like, this is not going to fit in the
Yeah.
trunk, like.
Yeah.
So where did you put it?
Luckily, the support vehicles were
Yes.
able to take the excess
Yes.
luggage. And then
I
we
remember that.
also, when I moved out west, which I've talked about a couple times on the podcast, my dad's, that gracious and good guy and always willing to help. So I said, like, I got
me
this
blush.
job moving out west, and he was like, when are we leaving? It wasn't when are you leaving. Like part of it was probably like, oh,
Yeah, get out of
when
here.
are you leaving? man?
Yeah.
But it was like, when are you leaving? Like, and he drove out with me 4 days
4
from
days.
from here to
Yeah.
northern Alberta to Grand
Yeah.
Prairie, Alberta, and it was the spring of 2011, and there was all kinds of flooding
Yes.
through
North Dakota
North Dakota, and into
yeah.
Manitoba.
That's right.
And we were driving through water like up to the rocker panels in my F-150.
Yeah.
And
that was a great trip, though. That
was
was
a blast.
such a blast. We had such a good time. I mean, there's obviously you go through like the prairie provinces and that, and North Dakota, it's pretty flat, and you can watch your dog run away for 3 days, right? It's so flat. But it was such a great time. I mean, we, you're telling stories, you're going through memories, trips that we've gone on in the past. And as I said before, for me, and I think that's something Dan has as well, is most or half of that adventure is actually getting to that destination,
Totally.
right? Or coming home.
Yeah.
And having those good times and those good and sometimes, you know, those heart-to-heart conversations
Yeah,
too.
totally.
It's so it's a good opportunity to, you know, to go through some things.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the same, like when I moved back, you know,
Yeah.
you flew out and drove back with me. And I remember
Yes.
like, so going out there, well, you know, you save a whole bunch of time if you go through like Chicago, because when you go on the bottom side of Lake Superior, it just cuts like 8+ hours off the drive. So that's the way we went when we were going out there. So when we were on the phone and we were talking about it, and he said, do you want to do the same trip back? And I was like, you know, when are you going to go across the top of Lake
Yes.
Superior? You might one day, but like
Yes.
also maybe not. So we did that, and it was beautiful. First of
was.
all, the drive was epic, and we
Yes.
got to stay at your friend Roger's house.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I remember we were driving, and he said, like, look, I don't see Roger that often. We were stopping in Kenora, which is like just inside the Ontario border. So I don't see Roger that often. You know, he's probably going to want to have a few drinks. Are you okay to do most of the driving tomorrow? I said, yeah, like, you know, you're here helping me out, whatever. And I remember we had a rip-roaring time. We were supposed to
did.
get on the road at 7, and we didn't leave until like 10:30 in the morning because we both had headaches.
Well, it was, you know, I mean, my buddy Roger, he had, probably still has, Margaritaville mixer, and so
Dangerous.
that was, you know, the start of the end actually, right there. It was a rip roaring time. It was a great time. Yeah.
And then also back in 2019, we did a road trip through Scotland.
Yes.
Which was super cool.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 1 week of traveling through the Highlands, and that adventure started day one with the flat tire in the middle of the mountains.
Oh my god.
Because we're driving, you know, Dan drove. It was stick.
Yeah.
You're on the wrong side of the car, wrong side of the road. But the roads are so narrow in the Highlands, and so you're forced off when you have oncoming traffic. And, you know, we were going at a pretty good clip. It wasn't like really fast.
Probably
It was maybe
70 kilometers an hour or so.
And Dan hits this pothole,
Well,
and you
'cause
could feel it in your bones.
Oh yeah,
It was.
And he said to me, was like, "Oh, I hope we didn't get a flat." And then at that moment, it's
Yes.
like, ding, tire
Yeah.
pressure monitoring says like check front left tire pressure, and then instantly
Yeah.
it was just like, so we stopped on the side of the road,
Yeah.
and I felt so bad, you know, because it's like,
It
what
wasn't
do you-
your fault though.
No,
No, I remember
But
watching
it was that van.
this VW transporter came over
Yeah.
this crest, and he was driving like your dad in his Porsche 911, like
Yeah.
just ripping. And I was like, oh God. And I went like as far to the left as I could and just hit this massive pothole.
God.
But
Yeah.
that guy, like the service guy came out and was so
I thought.
nice.
I mean, I thought here we are in the middle of nowhere. What are we gonna do? Like, are we gonna be able to get a service vehicle, or are we gonna be like hacking out a wheel out of a tree or something like that to get out of here? You know.
It was like, it was pretty, but he even like, so, you know, technically it was like, that's on us with that flat, but he put it down as like, that it was like essentially balding, and it was like needed to be replaced. So
Yeah.
like
It was good of him.
It didn't cost us anything.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it was really, and he was
Yeah.
like super cool. He thought it was so
Yeah.
cool that it was like father and son road trip and
Yeah.
visiting from Canada.
And was the rest of your trip much smoother?
oh yeah,
It was
Yeah.
great. Like
Yeah.
we had some great destinations, like all these really nice cities. Hit, you know, went to distillery.
Yeah.
Talisker Distillery.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, we did some cool stuff.
Yeah, we had some. Yeah, I had some really good times there.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Well, we've talked cars, we've talked road trips,
Mm-hmm.
first cars. I think
Yep, dad wisdom.
Yeah, dad wisdom. It's there. We
Yeah.
appreciate you joining us.
I really appreciate you having me out here. It's you know, it's unique, but it's been really a really good time. Thank you for having me out.
This was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so
thank you.
much. I know so much, or I understand so much more about Dan now. You've raised an incredibly hardworking man,
You're making
and
me blush.
he has such a good sense of also like his moral compass is so well calibrated.
Yeah.
Much
Yeah.
to be proud of
I
here.
have to agree. Very
Thanks.
proud of both him and Chris, his older brother.
Yeah.
I think both of them have that same work ethic and moral values, and that's, you know, it's important.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Got it from
Thank
you
you.
and mom for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Good
Thank
job.
you. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Well, that was fun. I think it was pretty cool.
I love all those stories.
Stories, chatting with our dads, getting the scoop. Yeah, I like it, and for next week, I don't think we have a topic yet, but maybe it'd be fun to get people to let us know what you think. What's a topic that we haven't covered that you guys think that we should cover? Let us know at expert@trader.ca. But we also have some topics we can cover. We talked about doing off-roading. We talked about sports cars, car buying tips,
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different topics, but if there was anything specific that you wanted us to
Yeah.
demystify, just email us at expert@trader.ca.
Totally. And with that, yeah, happy Father's Day. To all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day to my dad, John Alika, to my brother, Chris Alika, to Frank Lai, to Frank McKinnon, to all the dads out there, and father figures out there. You guys really mean a lot, and you might not get that appreciation every day, but we love you, and we know your kids do too. And thanks again for sharing your stories, and thanks for joining us.
And we'll catch you next time on On the Road with AutoTrader.